Hi, here we are back at the diner. We're halfway through right about now. Tonight we're going to add some additional windows. If you notice, there's a lot more depth with the windows darkened. It's really getting there. You can actually feel the place. It's kind of nice to, when you put the architectural parts of it, just the framework, it doesn't really do it justice. But once you start adding the depth to it, then you really could feel the building. So tonight we're going to start adding a couple more windows in. I was just at the diner a couple of days ago, so I have part of the diner in me. Not just going to be the drawing part of it. And like I said, I love diners. I've been going to them for as long as I can remember. And I will never get the diner syndrome out of my head. I simply love, it's so much Americana to me. And we are so blessed to have one right here in our midst. So we are doing the window now. We're going to try to get as much of that as possible. I'm using a Payne's Gray, not black. It looks awful dark, but it's actually Payne's Gray, which is really a dark gray. If you use something darker, it would be too strong. As it is now, it's a very, very dark gray, and it's not going to affect the final outcome. If you use black, it's just too strong. So here we go. I'm trying to get, there's a little light inside of there. I believe it's one of the clocks inside the diner, and it's just a blue halo from the outside. You really don't see much of it. So at this point, I'm just going to paint around it. There's a lot of little things inside the diner we're going to try to accentuate tonight. When I have time, I'll really go in there and really do a better job doing little nitpicky work. Tonight, I'm just interested in getting the outskirts of it. For instance, I did a lot of work on the molding, the bricks. Didn't do that on camera because it's so tedious. I didn't want to really bore you guys with needless detail. So I did a lot of that on my own. I'm just doing basic stuff tonight, like the windows, which are, you'll see a big difference tonight alone when the windows are done. I'll give you an example. Later on my own, I'll put in highlights in the window to make it look like glass. Usually a 45-degree angle with just white stripping going at a 45-degree angle will give the appearance of glass. Someday when this is done, in the near future, whenever it's shown somewhere, probably the library, I'm aiming to have this ready by the late fall, and what I'm going to do is put in all the details. I belong to the Art League in Plainville, and I'm aiming for this to be my December juried piece. See what happens. I think I can get it done by then. I hope. I really don't have much. I aim for 2 or 3 contests every year. The Plainville one's important to me because the Art League has always been close to my heart. And this is a departure for me. I usually do faces or I draw buildings. This is the first time I painted a building. Believe it or not, this is the first building I ever painted. It's not much of a stretch because, believe me, once you've drawn a building, that's like 90% of the battle. Not much of a stretch to go one step further and put color in it. Now, I'm probably going to lightly, there's a little bit of a reflection of light on the inside. It's as a covering over the grill. And what I'm going to do is just lightly indicate it. I'm not going to make a big deal about it because I don't want to overly dramatize the reflections. I could do stuff with it later, and I intend to. Right now I'm just doing a basic indicator of it. It's like a little light, there's a grill in the background. It's really not too noticeable here. It's going to be very noticeable in this section. The light reflects over that one side of the kitchen, and from the outside you could see a very dramatic reflection. It looks like metal from the outside. I don't think it really is metal. It's kind of a covering that goes over a certain section. What I'm doing tonight is basically just drawing attention to it. It's not going to be perfect. I think a lot of detail gets blown away when you're looking through a dark window. And what I'm going to do is basically not try to get too much detail from the outside. My only concern is to get the exterior as accurate as possible. I'm also thinking about this is in the future. I'm going to actually put some characters seated inside the diner. I was thinking about putting my daughters in there, seated in one of the booths with me, having something fine to eat. We're going to put some local, or perhaps some famous people seated in there. I was thinking about putting, there's a famous singer-songwriter by the name of Tom Waits, who has done a lot of songs about diners. And I could just picture him loving this diner. It really fits his type of, his stylings. He lives, unfortunately, he lives in California, so I don't think he'd frequent this, but it'd be kind of nice. And I'm thinking about a few other people. It'd be kind of nice to have Guy Fieri there. He does a lot of critiques on diners, so I'm thinking about putting him in there. I think that'd be really funny. And again, basically tonight I'm just putting the darkness inside the windows. Not going to make too much detail. That I'm going to reserve for when I don't have, when I do have a lot more time to be careful and do stuff. Tonight we're just putting in basic tones, establishing a background. Yeah, it's going to be great. I've never done a structure like this in paint. I've done lots of buildings in pen and ink. In fact, I'm pretty well known for that. When I was at the Herald, I did almost every building in New Britain. Churches, you name it, I did them all. This is, now that I live in Plainville, I've lived here for many, many years, about close to 30. And I'm doing a lot more buildings in the Plainville area. And I love this particular diner. I'm thinking about doing a couple of other structures in town. This is one that really comes to mind. And let's face it, we're so blessed to have a diner in our midst, a real old-fashioned diner. Okay, we got the top half of the window in. Next, let's do the bottom. We're going to do, again, we're just going to indicate where that reflection is. It makes a really dramatic thing when you actually show the depth of this window. I know when I got this half done, I was amazed at the depth that resulted. It really makes a big difference. It's one thing to draw it, and I really believe highly in drawing anything you paint. A lot of people say I go to too much length when I do anything. I draw it to death, then I paint it. Kind of ridiculous to go all that trouble to draw something as fully as I do just to cover with paint. But I look at it this way. Short of being an architect and an engineer, I'd rather be 100% sure about the soundness of the building, or whatever, the face, the building, I just want to be 100% sure that it's plausible. And that's why I go to great lengths to draw everything and make sure it just makes sense. If I do a face, the drawing's got to be it's got to be correct. You have to recognize the person from the drawing. Then when you add the element of color and other features, it should work. Now, I got the bottom of that reflection in pretty good. I'm going to go to a thicker brush, one with more bristles, to do the bottom half. It's still tricky, still really got to know what you're doing. Putting a little bit more water on the palette. One of the problems is when I'm under studio lights like this is an acrylic Masterson's palette, and it dries as quickly as you can imagine. It's not like oil, which pretty much stays solvent throughout a piece. Acrylic is water-based. That's not saying it's watercolor, but it has some of the same problems. It dries on impact. The Masterson's kit has a little sponge in it, and I freshly watered it today, so it's going to stay pretty much waterlogged for now. Okay, we got the bottom half. What I'm going to do is paint all 3 windows tonight. The detail, it's best, I might try to get some done tonight. Let's just get the darkness in first. Since I have the brushes wet, and it just makes sense to get that aspect of it done. Now, see, I got a big brush in my hands, and I could do such perfect little 45-degree angles. But let me tell you, it's not like it's not difficult. It's very difficult. You really have to control the brush and really keep your hand accurate when it comes to this. I recently brought this painting, this beginning of a painting, to the New Britain, to the Plainville Art League. We had a little bit of a critique. We had a local expert, her name is Doe Bartlett. She's famous in her own right. I think the world of her. She's just fantastic. When she delivers a critique, when she looks at a painting, she says she crucifies, but I think that she just tells the truth. And she did a very good job. She pointed out a few things, and you know, sometimes another set of eyes are what you need. When I told her that I intend to put people inside the diner, when I intend to put a nice sky behind it, she was tickled. She said that she would like to do something like this. This is right up her alley, and I was like, that made me very happy. Like I said, to me, she's the consummate artist. For her to say that she would like to do something like this was quite the feather in my cap. Anyway, she's critiqued my work over the years, and she could be pretty tough. But me and her have developed a kind of a mutual admiration society, and I really, to me, her word is solid. And when she makes a comment, I take it to heart. I really listen to every word she says. And she's a dear soul. Now, we're almost done with the window. And I'm amazed because I didn't make a single mistake. And it's hard because, like I said, I'm using a medium-sized brush, not very pointy. I'm using acrylic paint, which, as anybody could tell you, is not the most easy paint to use. It's water-based. It's very hard to get it just to do what you want. It takes a lot of skill and practice just to get it to work right. It's water-based, so it's basically very thin. It's not thick paint. What I do, I try to make what I put on the canvas 50% pigmentation and 50% moisture, so in other words, water. I don't use anything but water. A lot of acrylic artists use fixatives and I use extenders. I don't use any of those. I find extenders dilute the intensity of the color. And I'd rather the color be true. I'll use a little bit of water and keep the color really vibrant. A lot of people who know will look at this and they'll say the same thing. The color is very strong and intense. That's what's important to me. Later on, if I feel that it's not intense enough, I'll go back over it with a second or a third coat. That's something a lot of acrylic artists do also. One window, done. Well, I think I'll go to a second one before I do any of the framework. The second one's got a lot more to it. We have two little metal frames that go in between. I'm putting a shiny metallic tone in there, but I think what I'll do is since my brush is already nice and dirty, we'll go inside of the windows and get those in. It adds a depth, and tonight you'll be able to see the depth. A little bit too much water, so let's get back into the mix. Make it a 50% blend. A lot of people who know acrylics will testament to this. It has to be the consistency of a pancake batter, in that it's got to be nice and fluid, but there has to be a good 50% pigmentation in it. Otherwise, it'll not, you could see through it, and that's not good. So here we go. Good 50%. Right now we're just there. And notice I'm painting a straight line. This is not for the faint at heart. Paint a straight line. Try it someday. It helps if you pencil this out first, which I did. Now, easy to paint a vertical. Verticals, when you paint the line towards yourself, it's easy. It's a lot more difficult to paint a horizontal line. For some odd reason, you don't have the same, your hand doesn't necessarily go easily in that direction. So here we go. We're going to try, this is a real chore sometimes. I'm going to try to make it a horizontal line. I could do it, I've done it. It's not as easy as a vertical. There we go. Golly, I did it. Now, what I could do is take that a little bit further. See, the great thing about this, I could always fix it later. It's not like it's the last time I'm ever going to address this. I'm going to work on this again and again and again. I'm not like most artists. I don't just do it once and run away from it. I will work on this till it's darn ready. Which means what you see tonight is not going to be the final incantation. It's going to I'm probably going to work on it at least another 2-3 months before I'm ready to put a fixative over it, a spray, there's several sprays I use when I'm done. But right now, I'm not even thinking about that. That's way off in the distance. But lately I've been I put a fixative over all my acrylics and my oils. I like something that casts a nice reflection, doesn't necessarily make it look too pretty, but it does a nice job. There we go. Nice steady hand. We're going to go further. I'm looking at the photograph, and we're going to make sure that we are doing a little bit of faith to the actual elements inside the diner. There's a little light that comes out there. Like I said, later on I could really make more amendments to this. Right now it's just a roughness. We're going to put a lot more information regarding there's a couple of neon lights in there. we're going to make a big deal of it. I did that there. I'm going to do it here. But I think for my own sake and the sake of my sanity, I'll do that at a later date. I won't do that live tonight. Maybe I will. We'll see. Right now, I just want to get the depth. So here we go. Second window. A lot of people don't draw to the extent I do, but it really makes a difference later on when you have everything drawn. Chances are it's going to be easy to paint. You have all the elements ready. It's going to be a lot easier to justify a lot of stuff if you've done your homework and drawn the background. Now, a lot of these are different colors. Some of the colors in the background are not necessarily black and white. That's going to be the great thing. I could always do stuff to amend that. I think I'll do all 3 windows tonight. There's actually 4, but I think I'll save something for next time. The brickwork was probably the hardest thing. Every brick is a different color. Whoever designed this diner did a tremendous job. He had every color of brick. They weren't just simple red bricks. There were some that are black, some that are brown, some that were white. And yet he didn't follow a strategic pattern, which is great. I kind of, you try to establish a pattern and there isn't one. And I think it's kind of neat. Very distinctive diner. When you drive by in Plainville, it sticks out like nothing. It just, I'm not saying the rest of the town is drabby, but let's face it, you don't see too many diners in towns, and this one sticks out because it's really, really nice. It's really cool. Okay, so we're going to do the top. Again, remember, this is horizontal. It's a horizontal line. I cheat. I actually rest my hand on the canvas. A lot of artists over the years use little devices. They rest their hand. Norman Rockwell had a little stump that he held and rested his hand on there. So a lot of people accuse him of cheating, but let's face it, you try drawing and painting straight like this and making a nice, great line. The thing about this, I did not use a ruler. I did it all by hand. And if that's a testament, you try drawing something straight or painting something straight. It's not as easy as it sounds. And a lot of people don't think it's necessary to paint straight. I do. I think when you're doing a building, you can't be impressionistic in that sense. It's going to show. This is a diner, for God's sakes. Would you want your food to be impressionistic? No. You want your food to be rather appetizing. I think a building, by all accounts, should equally be something that you look at and say, yeah, you did a good job. So, there are certain things that lend themselves to be done realistically, and this is definitely one of those things. Well, we're halfway through the second window. I'm really happy with the way this is turning out. I'm going to do approach the bottom of it now. There's just a little bit of a light on the inside. I'm guessing it's probably some of the booths that reflect. Like I said, I'm going to put my daughters in one of the booths, seated next to me. It's going to be fun. Over the years, we've frequented this diner many times under different owners. My kids pretty much grew up eating this in this place, so it's kind of nice. It's a fixture, and I'm sure many people have done the same. All right, let's get the bottom of this situated. Like I mentioned, we're going to do this several times. This is the first coat. It's not solid in places, and I'm not using black. I'm using Payne's Gray, which is a very dark gray. We're painting on a white canvas. I didn't prime the canvas with a color. Some people do. I simply go right onto the white, which means I'm going to have to do several coats of color. And that, I find that to be less of a problem than putting a color gesso on the canvas, which can be a problem sometimes because you're fighting two things. And this is just white. I do a nice drawing over it, and that gives me a nice firm thing to address. The hardest part of all this is the fact that some of the metal has a reflective tone. So I'm using kind of a metallic color. And let me tell you, anybody who knows their salt, painting in a reflective metal is not easy. It's not like painting with regular tones. It's very difficult. I've done it in oil, and that's even twice as hard. But I tell you, I'd rather do this in acrylic. For one thing, the results are quicker. It takes a long time for oil to dry. So we're doing pretty good. All right. The insides, the colors are different. So basically I'm leaving them white for now. It's going to help me realize what I have to put in later. These two little areas here are going to be my daughter's head, so I'm going to leave them pretty much open. Yeah, they're that small. Believe it or not, a person inside the diner is not very big. They look about that big. It's hard to believe, but when you think about it, when you look at the size of the newspaper boxes, it's pretty much accurate. And you're taking these people and putting them inside the diner, which reduces them even more. I think we're going to work out pretty good. All right, well, we're approaching the end of another episode. Next episode, I'm going to finish the last window. And we're going to, in the future, next episode, we're going to do even more with the last window. But for tonight, I'd really like to get these windows going. I'll do some detail work as we approach that. Anyway, I want to thank you all for enjoying this. I know I'm getting a kick out of doing it. And please, if you have any comments, if you like what we're doing, please notify the station. I'm sure they'd be glad to hear anything positive. That'd be nice. All right, good night, and we'll see you next time.